Welcome to the channel, Gaming Army. For the drops in this video, we have brought out our Cougar. It is the Cougar H, but as it is an OmniMech, that part really doesn't matter because you can mix and match the pieces parts on OmniMechs. For example, our current loadout, I'm running a Cougar Prime left and right torsos, so that I have the missile hard points for my missiles. So this little 35-tonner is quite versatile, and our current loadout looks something like this. 2 LRM-15s, 2 Clan Heavy Medium lasers. We have a top speed of 81 kph, and because this is based on the H chassis, I do also have ECM. So our first drop has us playing Assault on Tourmaline Desert, and now we're going to roll up our sleeves and get into the wonderful world of LRMs. Before we get too far down that rabbit hole, I am going to throw a couple things out, and number one is being I am not good with LRMs. I don't want to be good with LRMs, and it personally is just not my preferred play style. So there, I've got my disclaimer out already. That all being said, I also recognize the fact that boating LRMs on heavier chassis is a strategy that can be very effective. So let's dive into everything LRMs and take a closer look at this weapon system. So the first thing you'll want to be aware of if you choose to go this route and employ LRMs is the closer you are to your target, the faster your lock time is going to be. Now, line of sight also helps as well as you know, no ECM on the enemy's part and all that fun stuff. But basically, if you want to speed up your lock times, get a little closer to your targets. And this is a little counterintuitive, just because the ranges on LRMs are, you know, somewhere in the 1,000-meter range, so you can engage from, you know, halfway across the board. So moving in closer sometimes seems a little bit counterintuitive, but it will help speed up your lock time. The next big thing you need to be aware of is LRMs have a minimum range under which you do no damage. So you need to be aware of that, making sure the enemy doesn't get too close to you, and that's also why you will find yourself getting pushed by enemy units, because they're trying to get underneath your minimums and get into a position where you can do no damage to them. So just be aware of that as well. Now, hopefully in this video you've noticed it already, but just in case you haven't, please pay attention to the firing arcs when I'm firing off the missiles. You can notice the arc is very high compared to that of ATMs and MRMs, which have a very flat trajectory. So pay attention to that, in knowing that you can get your missiles up and over friendly units, certain terrain features, etc., because you have that higher firing arc. It also allows you to take cover behind terrain and still be able to get your missiles out over top of that terrain, which is the next thing you need to be aware of. The terrain can also work against you in blocking your missile's flight path. So you can see here where rock outcroppings are in the way, the missiles don't arc up over the outcropping per se, and you just need to be aware of that sometimes the terrain can also work against you in blocking. The missiles don't just automatically go over top of any terrain that's in front of you. That being said, there is a way to use terrain to your advantage, and that is a special little maneuver, and hopefully you noticed it when I was engaging the Hellbringer, and it's kind of a little side juke or twist, if you will. It's for use in a situation where you have lock on an enemy target, but the terrain is blocking your normal missile arc. In those situations, you can do either a left-right motion, up-down motion, whatever it takes to clear that terrain, and you can exaggerate your missile's arc around or above the terrain to still get your missiles out and on target. So that's a neat little trick that you can do in those types of situations. The other thing you'll want to do when using your LRMs is keep an eye on your target reticle. If you're firing missiles, especially if you fired 2 or 3 volleys and do not see any red hit indicators, that's a great indication that the enemy target is behind some sort of cover that is blocking your missiles, and you should probably move on to a different target. Likewise, if you fire 2 or 3 volleys and see a hail of enemy AMS and you're not getting any hits, that's an indication their AMS is a little too strong at that particular point. You may want to look towards a different target that's away from their AMS cluster that you can successfully get hits on. So those are a few tips that you might want to use if you choose to go the route of the LRMs. So jumping back into this drop real quickly, we have devolved into a quick game of Ring Around the Rosie around the Fox 7 area. My units are going to the left, and the enemy is pushing in from the right. We found our friend the Victor from earlier. We're going to continue focusing some damage on him. My ECM protected me. He was looking for me but did not see me, thank goodness. After all, this is only a little 35-ton mech without the best armor in the world. I threw up a UAV trying to give me a heads up if somebody is pursuing me, and there is indeed an enemy target trying to hunt me down. I was trying to buy some time for my teammates as they continue to fall back around the Fox 7 area. So the 7-7 score has quickly turning into 8-10, and now I find myself being last man standing. This is not a good position to be in, because now they're going to be hunting for me actively, and at some point I am going to have to fight face to face with the enemies in a brawl situation, and half of my firepower is LRM. In fact, here comes the urban mech. He is pushing me, and he's going to underrun my minimums, leaving me to just my heavy medium lasers, and he's got way more armor than I do. So this is not going to end well. I'm going to get swarmed, overrun, and eventually I am destroyed. Switching over to the end screen on this one, we still managed to come out of this one with a single kill, 4 assists, 509 damage done. Moving on to our next drop, this one has us playing skirmish mode on Grim Plexus, and this is where I'm going to use the ECM that comes with the Cougar H. I'm going to squirt out to the far left flank of my teammates, looking to get angles of opportunity on the enemy. They're not going to notice me as much since I am under ECM protection. I'm attacking from a flank, and I can act as a spotter for my teammates. Now, I do need to be aware of the fact that after so many missile fires, they eventually will pay attention to where the missiles are coming from. So you don't want to overstay your welcome in these types of situations, but you do want to try to get as many locks on enemy targets of opportunity, as well as relaying enemy movements to your teammates. And who knows, if you can distract them enough, maybe they'll be looking your way and open themselves up to an alpha strike from the teammates who are now pushing Fox 8. I have no illusions that being out here on the flank, eventually the enemy is going to wise up to the fact that I'm out here, and I'm pretty sure I'll see some fast movers or skirmishers show up to rain on my parade. But until that happens, I'm going to stay out here and get as much work done on the enemy as possible. Again, just looking for locks and targets, and of course misclicking my weapons there. Don't know why I was firing my lasers, but I did. I got overexcited, trigger happy, Anyway, I'm going to keep raining as many support missiles onto enemy targets as possible. I'm also keeping an eye on the mini-map because there's an interesting development going on. It looks like the enemy has pulled back out of Gulf 8 more towards Gulf 7, and several units are trying to push across the open area at the top from like Gulf 7 to Fox 8, which means they are fully exposed out in the open, and I will take free shots like that anytime that I can get them. So their push looks like it stalls out across the center. There's still a few units here and there, and one of my friendly units has managed to lock up this archer, and he has an open right torso. So I'm going to see if I can get a few missiles on that target. Maybe we can take that right torso from him. And it looks like he's now open CT as well, although I do notice quite a bit of AMS fire in that particular area, so I'm not sure who had the AMS, but I'm glad it's gone now because I found a hunchback and we rained some missiles on him as well. And something else over here towards Fox 7 possibly. There it is. A couple of them over there. But Juliet is a much better target. A huge annihilator that is slow moving. I'll take that any day of the week. And again, just trying to hold on to our locks and rain as many missiles as we can. Right now the board is tightening up and it looks like most of the enemy is in the 7 line. So I'm going to take this opportunity to start moving in a little closer. I'm definitely not looking to brawl in this mech. However, if I can lessen the distance and shorten the travel time for my missiles, they'll be more accurate. The enemy will have less time to react to it, and hopefully I can get even more damage done. So we're going to push in here looking for targets of opportunity. Again, continuing support fire as much as possible, as often as possible, but the locks are really sporadic until I see an enemy hellspawn who has chose to activate his jump jets, and I can easily get a laser blast in on that unit. And we found a direwolf up on top out in the open. We'll try and get some missiles on him. Now you saw the first volley did not hit. There was no red hit markers. The second volley hit, third volley did not. So this is why it's important to keep an eye on that center target. I'm moving on because the majority of my missiles now are not hitting, but it did force that unit to seek cover as opposed to continuing to move in whatever direction he thought he wanted to move. Hellspawn goes vertical again. I'm able to take his left leg, and now I can take his right leg as well. And that will end that. And now back to the direwolf, and for some reason my missiles are not hitting him. I think he's on the back side of that building on the corner, and that's why I'm not getting the hits. But now he's out in the open just in time to eat a bunch of missiles and secure the kill. That's what we were doing, securing the kill. 2 enemies left. Here's Alpha Piranha, and try and get some missile fire on him. I don't hold out much hope just because he's such a fast mover, and until somebody legs him, he's probably going to be very difficult, but my teammates managed to take him out. So we're down to the final enemy unit. And this is always the worst part of the game, hunting for an unknown unit.
Gonna be AFK.
Not sure if he's active or disconnect, but somebody has thrown out in chat that he is indeed a disconnect or was AFK in I-7, so that's where we are going to focus our search. And while we do that, there's a couple more things I want to cover about LRMs. I think that LRMs are hated and despised so much because it's an indirect fire weapon, and a lot of times you can't even retaliate against the unit that's firing them because they're out of range and or behind cover, and you're just taking this damage falling from the sky without any hope of defending yourself or returning fire. But there are some reasons why you shouldn't necessarily be good with LRMs. In fact, it can be downright dangerous to be good with LRMs. So boating LRMs, especially on heavier chassis like an assault mech, in my opinion, is a huge gamble because you're tying up a lot of tonnage. So that 100-ton mech with an LRM 120, let's say, is gambling on battlefield conditions being favorable enough for them to get out most of their missiles and do maximum damage. And my argument is you're gambling on that being the case, whereas that same 100-ton mech in a mid-range or brawling build will 100% find favorable battlefield conditions because every drop eventually devolves into a brawl as the battlefield tightens. So you're gambling on the possibility of doing loads of damage or the guarantee that you will do loads of damage. I get it. You know, everybody can be taken out or miss shots or whatever. But I'm just saying, you're talking about battlefield conditions versus certain conditions that you know will exist going in. Another thing to be aware of is the fact that LRM boats are very vulnerable to attack and easy prey for enemy lights and skirmishers. We've all seen light mechs and fleas and locusts taking out atlases, and when that assault mech is loaded down with LRMs with no backup weapons, the disparity is even more so. So it's something else to be aware of. And the most important part when dealing with LRMs is this. LRMs boated on a heavy mech can crank out lots and lots of damage without a whole lot of effort. It is lock, fire, repeat over and over again, and you will rack up the damage and get a good match score. The problem with that is you're not learning the different aspects of the game as far as tactics and positioning and focus fire and a host of other skills that you're going to need going forward. So by playing just LRMs, you're going to move up the tiers without the skill sets to back that tier rating up later on in the game. So it's something just to be aware of. As this match finishes out, our Piranha has rejoined us, obviously, so the hunt was for an active shooter, and I managed to end this one by taking his legs. Switching over to our end screen, this drop ends with 4 kills, 5 components destroyed, 454 damage done.